Okay, hello everyone. Here we are. I have Rachel Pope with me today, and I feel so blessed to have her here with us to share her personal story around grief. Rachel is also a grief recovery specialist, and she's the author of her book, which is called Gifts from Grief. So, welcome, Rachel. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks, Liv, and hello to your beautiful audience. It's an honour to be here and share today. It's such an important conversation.
It is. Rachel and I have just had a few moments to have a chat, and this has actually been a few weeks in the making. This interview, as life does, it's just taken us a little while to get here, but we're finally here. But we always have to trust that these things kind of happen in their sort of divine timing. So. Let's open up with hearing a little bit about your personal story with grief, Rachel.
Sure, Liv. Well, my first, major grief and loss experience was at the age of 17. I was training to be a pilot. I had my pilot's license before I could drive and had finished year 12 and what's meant to be, the most exciting time of your life. And sadly, my dad was diagnosed with aggressive bowel cancer, and he passed away a short 6 weeks later. So our whole world was turned upside down. He was only 47. I'm the youngest of three older brothers, and he was our world. And he was so proud to see me pursuing my dream. And it just, rocked us to the core. And at 17, you're not equipped to deal with grief and loss. And my friends, supported me the best way they knew how. No one else had experienced someone from their family and things like that. And as a family, we supported each other. But looking back and everything I've learned since, I just pushed it all under the carpet and just put my head down and just kept going. A fast track 8 years later, my eldest brother died in a car accident. Tragically, he was 33 and he was a really special man. My brother Brett, he was a paraplegic, so he spent most of his life in a wheelchair. And I guess that gifted us a gift of perspective from a young age about life and what's important. But he competed in games overseas, Pacific Games, and as an athlete, he worked for Qantas. He travelled the world. He was very independent and just gifted so many people around him his special personality and his generosity, and was just such a wonderful friend to many. Again, I was 25. I had met my husband at the time, but it was really a defining moment for me then to address what I wanted to do with my life too. And I actually looked ahead that career of flying and being a pilot and felt that it wasn't for me. So I stopped flying then. Just wanted to get married and have kids and find something new for myself. My husband and I, we grew up in Brisbane, and we moved to the Sunshine Coast and had our beautiful kids. And I bought a Gymboree franchise, which was something I was very interested in about early childhood development with my kids. And we thought this would be a great career for me. My daughter had started school and my son was at kindy. And 2 weeks after we signed the papers and bought that franchise, the area of the Sunshine Coast, my husband was diagnosed with the same cancer as my dad. So full circle moment, and I was like, you're going to be gone in 6 weeks, because that was my previous experience. Absolutely devastating, but we were positive. Obviously, there's a lot more treatments and therapies around, and we just stayed positive, thinking that we'll get through this. And he was young, fit, healthy, 46-year-old man. And we had 16 months at home with him, and he passed away in October 2012, and the kids were 4 and 6. So I was left widowed at 38 with a business, 2 young children, full circle, memory for me. All the grief of my brother and my dad and other things came bubbling to the surface, and I just put on that Be Strong mask. And your listeners will relate, when you're going through grief and event like that, you'll have people around you tell you, I can't imagine, I couldn't do what you're doing, you're so strong, and you get told all those things, but we have no choice, right? And I did that. I put the Be Strong mask on, thought that was the right thing to do, running my business, 2 kids, even though I had a beautiful support from family. I did that for 3 years until I fell in a heap, and it was a on my knees moment that I'll never forget. And it was, I am just surviving here. I'm not thriving. What is this all about? Why haven't I grieved 3 years on? And yeah, it just propelled me into research and to go looking for resources around grief. Even though I tried different therapies over the years, you name it, I've done it. I never felt equipped with the tools to grieve healthily. And I also recognised that I'm not doing my kids a service here by being strong. I'm not allowing them to see what this is about and allowing grief to flow through me and express all those emotions. So I started journaling and writing, and my Gifts from Grief community was formed. And I just got such, incredible feedback from people experiencing all different types of loss, not just death, because grief comes in many forms, and we'll touch on that. But yeah, I just started writing, and my book was born, and that was published in 2019. And then I discovered grief recovery, and it's just such a beautiful action-based program that allows people to address all the grief and loss in their life, not just the most recent and what maybe brings them to me. And just to have that lived experience to hold space for people to move through unresolved grief, because that's where a lot of the pain lies. So that's what led me to do the work that I do now, and yeah, I'm just honoured to guide people through this.
How just before we delve into the work that you do now, how do you find you handle like, do you find working in grief is triggering?
Not anymore. There's a defining moment, I think, and you would find that too in the work that you do, that there's a moment where you step over your story and you really feel that shift of moving from pain to purpose. And because I've done the work, and because I've allowed that healing, and I've practiced what I preach daily, that you take your eyes off yourself, and I have compassion now. I don't get triggered. I have compassion, and I can feel. But at the same time, society teaches us to jump in and compare losses, and that robs people dignity. And so even if I'm working with another widow, I'll never tell them I know how you feel, because everyone's relationships are unique as well to them. So everyone's recovery components are different, because we carry a whole lifetime of experiences and grief and loss experiences, and from childhood. And so, there's so many myths and misconceptions around grief. And the first one is that be strong. We're told we have to be strong. My 4-year-old was told he's the man of the house now. Like, how ridiculous is that? And especially for our men and young boys, they're told to man up and be strong and power through. And we're given one day off for a funeral in the workplace and expected to get on with things. So as a society, we don't grieve healthily, and there's a bit of culture in that westernized world, and here Aussie culture, I believe. That's just my observation. And another myth is that time heals all wounds. We get told just give it some time, and all time does is pass. It's not healing in itself. It's time plus some small action steps, or some support. We don't break an arm and physically have an injury and say, I'll just pull up a chair and give it some time, right? No, we go and seek support, and we get it mended, and we do physio, and we tend to it. And that's physical, but we're not taught how to emotionally tend to our wounds. We're taught in actual fact to just brush it under the carpet and keep going. So yeah, we can be strong, or we can be human, and that was the biggest gift I could give to my kids, is to take off that mask and allow myself to grieve, and allow the sadness and all the other emotions, and resolve some of the pain around it. Grief is an umbrella. We have so many emotions. There's conflicting emotions there. There's anger and resentment and regret, and it's almost always around things we wish we could have said or done differently, or we wish somebody else could have said or done differently. Some grief in estranged relationships, divorce. There's unresolved pain there, and we're not designed to live with pain. We are designed to live with sadness. That's a natural and normal reaction to loss, but pain is something else. And
Yeah.
often as adults, we've carried a lot of pain from a whole different lot of, grief and loss events.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that topic of I guess you could put it into that category of the unresolved grief that presents, from the things that were never healed in those relationships. And one of the people that's going to come on and do a talk, he was talking about his story with his father, and he was very, very happy that he'd resolved. And so we'll obviously
Mm.
visit that when I talk with him. But I think that's really, really important, even just being conscious of that as we move through our lives now, being
Mm.
really mindful of how we manage our relationships with the people around us, so that we do resolve all those little loose threads. Actually, sorry, I'm just
And
going to close my door because I'm worried about the noise. Sorry.
oh,
Yeah.
good. And it's so true. And unresolved, and that's an action we take for ourselves. Often we think that requires two people to the party. But in a strange relationship to that person is still alive, they're unlikely to take those actions. So it's an action we can take for ourselves, because it's all about unresolved communications, and we have the power to do that. It doesn't have to be to that person, it's for ourselves, so that we can form a new emotional relationship that's complete and is free of the pain attached to that, so that we can invite more joy, and it no longer affects our capacity for joy in the present. If we allow that constantly to be triggers in our lives, we need to resolve that for ourselves. And as hard as it sounds, people fear that. They fear letting go of that identity, and we attach our identity to our stories and our pain, and because that's shaped us, who we are, and who we are as people. But if we allow other people to be 100% responsible for how we feel, then that's those events, that of course it doesn't deny or negate what people may have done to us, or an event that's happened that's out of our control. The only thing we can control now is how we react to those. And healing takes that. You have to feel it again, you have to revisit it, and that can be fearful for some people. But back to that broken arm, you wouldn't just leave that lying around to not be fixed, right? So it's and I use the word fix incorrectly there. We're not broken. Grievers are not broken. We don't need to be fixed, but healing, and just taking some small action steps and getting support. Yeah.
I suppose it makes me think of that word, responsibility. So it's like what's our ability to respond, even just to our everyday life. I sort of, and you hear it a lot, just not even on the topic of grief, but just in everyday life. We talk a lot about, that people are just not as responsible anymore. And it makes me think of this, that if, as we sort of take back our power and step into our own personal responsibility, and we manage these things in our life, responding to the things that we're holding on to, it helps us to manage. And I think this is all stuff that would help us to, when grief from loss, or it could even be, I talk about, the three aspects of grief: loss, longing, and feeling lost. I think it would help us to be able to move through that without all of the other layers that we still haven't dealt with.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a loss of identity, in so many grief events too. We attach ourselves to so many things. We're taught our whole lives how to attain things, to get a good education, to get good friends, to get married, to get a good house, get a good career. We're taught how to attain through life, but we're never taught what to do when we lose some of these. And the past 3 years we talked about before we jumped in, there's just this overwhelming blanket of grief worldwide for loss of a whole different lot of events, and one of those being identity and careers, because of the pandemic, or financial loss and job loss, or just changes in general. So when we look at grief as a change in any familiar pattern and behaviour, it's not just death, divorce. And for children, children of divorce, there's a change in their familiar pattern of behaviour, and they're grieving. That children grieve too, and
Mm.
that was a lived experience for me to, go to the classroom each year and explain to the teacher that this is what's happened and this might come up in that time. And quite often I get the email that, they're on the mat and they're talking about this, and the like children are so honest and transparent. And Susie would say, my cat died, and, Johnny would say, my grandma died, and then my son would say, my dad died. And the teacher would get overwhelmed with, emotion and say, well, that's not as bad as Susie's cat. I didn't know what to say. And I'd say, well, to Susie it is. All grief is felt at 100%. We can't compare grief and loss either. And children feel that at 100%. So, and often it would be their own grief coming up as well that they were experiencing, and they didn't quite know how to, use the language. So I'm very passionate about that education too, of how to go first as adults and say, I remember feeling that when, my dog died, or I remember feeling scared, or I remember feeling, sad, and using age appropriate language for our children, so it allows them just the space to express what they're feeling as well.
Yeah, I noticed that on your website that you have a very specific program for children.
Mm-hmm.
And that's obviously something that you've had to, I guess, as a mum, you've had to work with that for your own children. So tell us a little bit more about that, and maybe
Well, I guess it was in that moment that I realized the be strong, and holding those emotions in and not allowing them to see me cry and things like that. Crying in the shower, as mums are so good at doing, was not serving them, and not allowing them to, come to me then if they were feeling, because, and as supporters and friends, we often hesitate on why isolation and loneliness is such a huge part of for grievers, is that they don't know what to say and they don't know how to handle the emotion, so they say nothing at all. And then the cycle just gets, the gap gets bigger and bigger, and as the years pass, and well, I don't want to upset her by bringing it up. Well, the thing is, they're already upset, you're not going to upset them anymore. But acknowledgement is key. We need to acknowledge. And same with our kids, we use all the same platitudes we use as adults, we use for our kids. It's okay, there's plenty of fish in the sea, or you'll find new friends, but it doesn't address the grief that they're feeling at the moment. If there's bullying involved, or things happening at school, or they lose their favorite toy or item, it's trivial but to us as adults, but to them they're grieving. And so we need to acknowledge that with the right language. And what I teach to parents and teachers is that we always need to go first with a story. You need to tell a story about, I remember feeling this way, and I remember, and attaching emotions to those so that they feel safe, that it's okay to feel that. Because one of the other misconceptions is that don't feel sad, don't be bad, don't feel bad, don't feel sad, and then it's usually followed by an at least. And grievers, we get that a lot. At least you're young, you can still remarry. At least they lived a good life. At least, you can have another baby if somebody's, gone through miscarriage. At least this, at least that. And they're all logical statements, but grief is emotional, not logical. So we need to support each other with acknowledgement. It's acknowledgement, and then just listen. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say, but I'm here for you. I don't know how that must feel, and just acknowledging them in that time, and then just showing up to support.
Yeah, I find that quite interesting. Because I know that, I'm going to be honest, like if I kind of was there in that moment and wanted to console someone that was going through an immense grief, I would probably be one of those people that would try to find a positive, and say,
We all do.
at least. But so it's really, really good to be aware and break down that, that this idea that we don't, again, it's kind of like trying to find a solution to the problem. We don't need to do that. We actually just need to allow and to be present.
Absolutely. And as friends and family, of course, we don't want us, it's always coming from a well-meaning place. We don't like to see our loved ones hurting and in pain. So it's automatic reaction to try and jump in and fix.
Yeah.
And same with our kids, you know, they sometimes they just want to be acknowledged and they want to vent and they just want to be heard. So it's not like a jump in, let me fix this for you, let me fix this friendship problem for you or whatever. It's no, they can work it out themselves. They just want to express their emotion, their feeling at that time, whether it be hurt or, you know, anger or whatever. And same with friendships, you know, we just need to acknowledge and to say, I'm here for you. Do you want to talk about it? And then let them talk. If they don't, then I'll just sit here for you, or can I do something practical for you? Um, don't try and fix, and definitely don't compare someone's experience or loss. So, oh, I know how you feel. I lost my grandma last year. You know, it's that everyone's relationships are unique and everyone's loss is unique to them. So we don't know how someone feels, only they do. So yeah, it's a skill. Listening is a skill, and the more we do that, the more when we know that we don't have to fix the problem, we know that we just need to be there, then that allows us to do more because we're showing up more and we're not avoiding those. And that's why grievers feel so isolated, especially months, you know, a year's gone and everyone has gone back on with their lives. They feel very isolated because there's no acknowledgement. I'm still feeling this. I'm still going through this. I just need you to acknowledge that this happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with some of the other people we've spoken with, you know, this phrase like "I see you," you know, I think it's just a really nice reminder for us. Like if we're ever in that situation, and also if we're experiencing the grief, it is just that acknowledgement. It's like seeing the person, even for yourself, seeing your grief and just allowing it. We
And
tend to,
anniversaries are huge, you know, just to send a message that I'm thinking of you today. Christmas and Mother's Day, Father's Day, all that, whatever affects them in their life, to just send a message, say, I'm thinking of you today. That can just be so comforting to somebody to be acknowledged and know that that day is hard for them. And that doesn't, there's no time frame on that. You know, if you're close to someone, it can be 5, 10 years and Mother's Day comes up, I'm thinking of you today. I'm thinking of your mum. I'm thinking of this. And if they want to share some memories and some photos, and that's, you know, that's another step to allow them in their healing to feel safe. Social media, you know, we're taught not to keep posting photos in honor and memory, and you know, that it might show that. I hear this all the time from clients that you know, they get messages then from their friends, should you be posting that all these years later, you know, aren't you over that yet? But, you know, it's all about honouring, and if we lose our mum or whatever, we don't stop posting photos about them, but there's a stigma around widowhood and you know, you shouldn't be putting photos if someone's remarried, or, you know, you shouldn't be putting up photos of your late husband. How would that make them feel? And so yeah, there's a lot of education around that too, and I always just finish those memory posts with, you know, remember, honor, live, and repeat. We need to remember, we need to honor their gifts to us, but we have to remember to live to ourselves at the moment. And I'll never stop sharing that about, you know, he's still Ray, still my kid's father, and so we can honor that and keep that memory alive. It doesn't mean that it's affecting my capacity for happiness and joy.
Yeah, it makes me think of that saying that, you know, people say you don't kind of heal or recover from grief, but rather you learn a new way to live with it, or that it just, you move through it, and it kind of, it's almost like you build a new relationship. It's kind of recreating something new on the other side of it. It's not that you're making it go away.
No, and you know, but when that pain takes up too much of that space, we you know, we're not meant to live with that and power through that. But the honouring and then the new self emerges, and that's where we gain resilience, right, as humans from events and the things that we experience. It's what shapes us to who we are. So to honour that and to honour that strength and resilience that comes through, that's just with growth. But we have to move through it. We can't go under it or over it or around it. We do have to move through it and experience all the emotions that come with it in order to heal.
Yeah, it's been fascinating. You know, some of the things I've learned just through doing these chats. You know, I was very interested to hear that even the womb space in women, you know, can hold a lot of physical tension of unresolved grief, you know, so it's amazing.
Absolutely. Our bodies are incredible at storing grief,
Mm,
and I hear it time and time again. Physical symptoms, real physical
yeah.
symptoms. I was hospitalized with, suspected appendicitis 3 months after Ray passed. It was a grief attack, and people feel that physical chest pain, physical
Mm,
things. I had panic attacks and anxiety, driving, all those sorts of things are physical reactions, and that's normal. And the fog and not being able to concentrate, they're all normal reactions, especially in early grief. And our body's very clever at, storing all of that. The danger in that again is if that's held on to for years and years unresolved grief, then it will manifest in our body in all sorts of
mm,
ways, back pain
mm.
and migraines and things like that, chest infections, or when we store all those emotions.
Yeah, that was actually one of the reasons that kind of I started exploring grief on my own, because I had this reoccurring cough that I there was just no other reason, and it was my naturopath that said, "Well, lungs are the seat of grief." And I was like, "Huh?" So it's fascinating. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so tell us a little bit more about the grief recovery specialist program, because you did mention that that's the only evidence-based program in the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I discovered it over nearly 4 years ago. A psychologist in WA, Amanda Lambros, she brought the program back to Australia from the States because in her practice, she was finding that, the most common underlying for anyone's issues and how they found themselves up in a psychology practice, the underlying issues were all unresolved grief, from all different walks of life, all different areas of their life, whether it be childhood or relationships or death. And so when she discovered the program in the States after the loss of her brother, she brought the program back to Australasia and surrounds, and it's run all over the world. I thought I need to check this out and see what it's about. And I put myself through the program and just was blown away. I never felt more healing and more recovery from my own personal grief in any other therapies that I had tried. And I just thought, this is it. This is so wonderful. This needs to be shared. So I
Mm.
trained under her and became licensed to run the programs. And as I said, when people find me, it's because of a recent loss, but they almost always end up on working with something else. And it addresses holistically your whole life, not just what's happened now. And it addresses things that have been modeled to us and how we've been taught to deal with our emotions, whether that be in society or with how we've been brought up, and looks at all relationships in our life. I see transformations. Just as an example, that's not related to loss, was a lady who, had had a series of abusive relationships her whole adult life and was attracting that into her life and was just so broken. And that real, sense of no self-worth and just didn't want to live this life anymore because she just was so hurt
Mm.
and just craved joy and craved love. So to see that transformation, to work on where that actually came from and to uncover that, and for her to have that light bulb moment to go, okay, I see, I'm not broken and this is not my fault, but it is my responsibility to change that and to draw a line in the sand and to heal
Mm.
that and to have the recovery components work through her so that she can form a new relationship with her past and allow joy into her life and attract, at a higher energy values and people around her. To see
Mm.
that now is just, it's amazing. So it addresses all loss. And I do that in groups or I do it in one-to-one. So sometimes people enjoy group work because again it takes their eyes off themselves, and because we very much start with, we're not comparing anyone's loss here and there's no judgment. Some people are just they hear other people's stories and go, wow, I've been through this, but she's been through that, or he's been through that, and to see each other and share that space is quite profound as well. For others, they require and they only desire to be one-to-one. So there's the space for both. Yeah.
Yeah, it's both have very profound ways of helping people to heal, and just as you were saying before, everyone's so unique in their journey. So it could mean that at certain times in that grieving journey you need the one-on-one, but then there might become the time when the group work it feels right as well.
Absolutely. And I've had friendships form, two women who both lost their adult sons to suicide, and there's just no better acknowledgement and way to be in a space with someone who has experienced something similar, to just that understanding and compassion that they don't find from family and friends and people around them. So yeah.
So, like, if someone was to go through the program with you, what's the approach that this grief recovery program?
They have to be willing and open for a start. It's like anything, we can't give somebody a gym membership and expect them to show up. So there's that for a start. We really need to have a discovery call to see whether someone's in that frame of mind that they actually desire change and they desire that in their lives to heal, because it's a commitment. It's like anything that we do and learn, courses that we enroll in, you're investing that commitment to do some work. I don't call it work, well, I call it heart work. It's heart work, not homework. So there is heart work involved, and we move through 2 months. It's 7 to 8 weeks long and of meeting weekly, and it's the pieces of the puzzle. And we start out with acknowledging all those myths and misconceptions, and we start out with normalizing what they're feeling, and just providing that safe space that wherever they're at in their journey, it's never too early or too late. It's just whenever you feel that pull to change. And I wish, I wish I'd had been gifted this, but I obviously wasn't ready. I had to go through that rock bottom moment to come out the other side and to survive that, literally survive it. And so grateful that I'm still here today to have witnessed that of myself. But yeah, the journey it's a journey, and we commit to that with ourselves, and it's a safe space, and they need to do the hard work in between. I can't do that for them. I can just, if I say you can get a book and read that, but it's like swimming outside of the flags at the beach. When you're in the flags, you're safe, and you've got that support when you need it. So that's where the program is so powerful. Yeah.
I can't speak highly enough of being held in a safe container, whether it is with one-on-one work or in a group. Because it sort of holds you accountable, but it also so that's that responsibility, showing up and being present with yourself and doing that work, having that commitment, and that the self-worth comes out of that.
Absolutely. And I know for me, I've hesitated in that in the past, and I'm in all sorts of areas, even in business and investing in yourself, investing in a coach, and it's back to that self-worth again. And our car breaks down, we straight away go and get it fixed, right? Because it's a necessity in our life. We tend to it, we need it, it's a necessity. And as women, we just don't value ourselves enough to do that, to place that investment on ourselves for our families and for those around us, and our careers and our bodies and all of those areas. Women always put other people first, right? Especially as mums, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. And that's what it was for me. It's like, well, I'm stepping out here, I'm doing this for me first. It's oxygen mask first. And we're so prone to giving and giving, and then we get disappointed because we have expectations of others. And when you take away all those expectations and just put it on yourself, the expectation from ourselves, we're getting that cycle of receiving. We're meant to receive. We're meant to receive first, so that we can give to others and show up fully as ourselves and experience wholehearted living in the moment and not have those stresses. because we're holding on to so much unresolved grief and emotions. So by filling our own cup first, the flow over effect is quite amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really, really valuable lesson, or not lesson, but just piece of advice for women to the receivership. I love trying to, you know, it's about sort of opening up an energetic capacity to receive, and I think that that's a big thing for a lot of women to be able to step into that.
And it's scary for some because they're not used to it, or they haven't been given that love and support before, so they actually don't know how to receive it. And that could come from parental, upbringings and relationships where they've never felt loved or worthy, and so they don't know how to receive. So then we do attract, a mirror of what we think we're worth, and it's a hard lesson for me personally too, to learn that you're not used to asking for help. We're not used to asking for support. And back to that, be strong and just got to push through and power through and all those things. But we're not designed to power through.
No.
We're actually designed to receive, whether that just be from Mother Nature. We're just designed to receive first and fill our bodies and energy with that love, and then we can give, and the rewards then flow. There's a ripple effect. Yeah.
There is. Yes, you can definitely feel that. I know that, for one of the big lessons for me, when my children was young, was that learning that resentment was the message that I just wasn't looking after myself and filling that cup up enough. I wasn't allowing myself to receive, and I was, then I'd feel resentful that I couldn't have what I needed to be able to be fulfilled that role as mother or wife or friend, or even business owner. So there's lots of layers there, and we can grieve. And in that process, actually, in that time, I went through a lot of grief, longing for my maiden woman self. That before I had children, where I had so much capacity to fill up my cup.
And then we see it in relationships too. In our relationship, when there's suddenly a child involved, we grieve that old relationship, and we need to allow that growth and to grieve that past and to resolve that and to move forward to create a new normal with another human being and around us. So yeah, definitely that having a child is definitely a change in all our familiar patterns and behaviours as individuals and in our relationships. Yeah.
Oh, it's such a fascinating topic, isn't it? Very, very multidimensional.
It so is. And I just talk about in all my work too with guiding clients, is just that starting that ability to tell our emotional truth. That is what self-care is to me. And in early grief, people, told that you've got to look after yourself and do this and do that and meditate and all these things that, in early grief, you're so numb and there's a fog, and that's normal, and you can't read a book, you can't listen to anything, you can't watch a movie. Your concentration is really scattered. So to me, self-care for grievers is just allowing that emotional truth to come through, to recognizing what's my next step. One feeling, am I feeling really sad? What's my next activated step? Is it to call a friend? Is it to go for a walk? Is it to have a shower? Or is it to rest? Is my body, I'm really tired, I'm really weary of this, I need to rest. And just listening to ourselves and recognizing what the emotion is. Is it anger? Okay, what's my activated step? Instead of pushing people away or isolating when there's anger coming up, it's like, well, I need to resolve that. It's anger that I'm feeling. And we have all these short-term energy relieving behaviors, retail therapy, emotional eating, alcohol, a whole heap of things, numbing on Netflix. They're our go-tos when we feel that emotion come up and we just want to push it down. We don't want to go there because we could be trying to get dinner ready, or so we grab a glass of wine, or there's all these things that we do subconsciously and we need to bring awareness to those habits if we want to change them. And they could have started, we start those because of an actual event, someone who's been through a divorce, they weren't a big drinker and now they're a big drinker after the divorce. Or it could be something that was modeled to us from childhood when we heard ourselves, come and have a cookie, you'll feel better. And we emotionally eat because that's our source of, okay, to feel better from this pain, I need to eat something. And that could be modeled to us from our parents. And so whenever we feel that emotion come up, we replace it with food just so that we don't feel it. Problem is, it's short term. There's short term energy relieving behaviors. So short term, we feel good, and then we go back to feeling how we were. So we address all of that as well, our habits and ways that we've been telling ourselves that we're dealing with our emotions and actually.
Sounds very powerful.
Mm.
And very, I can see how transformational it would be for people to have the courage to actually, use the grief as an opportunity to, kind of resolve all that
And to grow.
and to grow. Yeah. Amazing. And I guess the only other thing we haven't really spoken about is your book. And you said that came out in 2019. And I guess that's a story of your own personal journey.
It is. It was cathartic for me. I knew I had to write it. I knew I had to sort of get it all down. When I looked at, the three amazing men in my life that I lost, I thought, what better way to honour them than to look at the gifts that they had given me. And I've always been a grateful person. So coming up with the title was, there's a lot of vulnerability there to title that Gifts from Grief, because people are like, what are you talking about? There's no gift in this. I'm widowed, how is that a gift? And but the chapters are 12 gifts. There's 12 gifts there from my experience and what I've learned and what I've seen and how I've grown. So the gift of growth, the gift of perspective, because death changes your perspective on life. And although I wouldn't wish my circumstances on anyone, I do wish my perspective on life for people, that some people go through their whole life and then it's too late. So they recognize that and they go, oh, I had it all wrong. I didn't appreciate this. I didn't tell them I was grateful. I didn't live in the moment. The gift of perspective, that is, and the gift of gratitude, to just wake up every morning, be grateful I opened my eyes today, and there's space for that at the end of the book to journal through that. The gift of adventure and spontaneity and all those things that my husband gave me, and then the gift of compassion and leading to finally the gift of contribution, to be able to step over my story and go, well, I'm contributing here and helping others. And that's one way I can honour my grief as well. And people who find that when they do go through grief recovery too, that their awareness and their surprise of other people recognising that with them and then helping others, and because they become better listeners and because they're doing some healing themselves, then those people are drawn as well to be inspired by them, and they then become the light for others as well. So yeah, it's been sold worldwide now, and my intentions was for it to only ever land on one heart in need, but it's certainly gone well and beyond that, and has just gone Audible last year as well, so it's available on Audible. And yeah, it's a gift to me. It's a gift to me when I hear people message me and say, I've just read your book and thank you. And there's also a bonus chapter on how to help a friend in there too, so which is important. So it's for anyone. It's for anyone who's grieving, but also anyone who wants to help somebody in their grief.
Yeah, I love it that you've given each chapter like the gift, the different gifts. I think that's a wonderful way to share your journey, and very, very useful for the people that read it. Yeah, I can see that would be very healing.
And I wrote it that you can open it up anywhere. And because of that reason, I knew in my early grief I couldn't read a book from beginning to end. It was too hard to concentrate, and then I'd start and then it'd end up on my side table. It's you can just open up anywhere, and whatever's meant to speak to you for that day, is there'll be a chapter there. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's just amazing. So much from your own personal experience. It's really um, what's the word? Knowing how to best serve the people that are
Mm,
going through by
mm.
delivering it like that. I think that's wonderful. Ah,
Thank
is
you.
there
Thank you
anything
so
else?
much for having me today.
Ah,
It's
it's
just
been
such
wonderful.
yeah, it's just wonderful what you're doing to the whole series, just so many different people and services and their contribution and holistically just covering so many areas. I think it's just wonderful.
Yeah, it's been
Mm.
a real journey. Yeah, I just feel like I woke up one morning and it was just something in my sleep must have happened.
Mhm.
And I just knew that I had to do this. And yeah, I have absolutely no regrets. It's been a really beautiful journey to sort of certainly change my language around grief and to understand it and to know that how I can, you know, support other people, but also, like you say, the gifts. It actually, when we you know, open the lid on grief, we realize that it's actually so very different to our kind of preconceived idea of it. So
Mm.
it is, yeah, it's a beautiful topic to explore.
Mm.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your work, which sounds amazing,
You're
and your
welcome.
book.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
we'll make sure that we pop all of the links for Rachel's business and your book. If anybody feels really drawn to reading Rachel's book, we'll make sure we pop the link of that in the post. But thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you, Liv. All the best. Thanks.